Hello, this is Frank with Poodle Pups with Principal. I'm the owner of this business along with my family. And today's video, the purpose of it, or the title of it, is going to be called the ABCs of Puppy and Dog Training. But before I begin, I want to just have a couple little blurbs to start with. First, I want to say that I am not a professional trainer. I have not gone through any type of schooling or professional training or other things. All my experience is practical in working with poodles. I've been breeding and raising poodles for over 20 years. So again, I wanted to start with that. The second thing I want to say, although these are called the ABCs and we're going to cover the basics of training puppies and poodles, not every situation will fit the ABCs. There are exceptions. These are guidelines, these are basic principles that can go a long way, but they would cover typically they would cover such things as teaching the broad concepts. We're not going to focus in this video on one particular behavior, but they could cover things. These are principles that I certainly think you can tie into teaching a puppy to sit or to come to you, or what's called recall, to working on a leash and leash training, to learning how to not play bite, to learning how to get used to fireworks. Before we just got done with the 4th of July. So those are typical behaviors that I think in general these principles work with. So again, the purpose of this video is not to cover one particular behavior, but it's just a broad video on the basics, general basics of puppy and poodle training. So stay tuned, and I got 5 of the points that go with the ABCs of training. Okay, so let's begin. Principle 1 of the ABCs of the puppy training is this: successful puppy training or dog training involves both proactive training and reactive training. Typically, oftentimes people just do reactive training. I'm going to go into the difference of those in just a second. But I honestly believe that the most effective training is proactive training, often, not reactive. So we're going to go into that a little bit. But so principle 1 of ABCs of puppy training is this: that successful training involves not only reactive training, but proactive training. So let's talk about that. Let's break down what is reactive, what is proactive. So reactive is what people typically will do. And that's where a puppy does something that needs to be corrected, and so you correct it after he does or she does the behavior. So it's happening because of a puppy's behavior. The owner's reacting to the behavior and trying to change the behavior. So it could be, reactive training would be, I'm taking a puppy for a walk and it's pulling on the leash, so I'm reacting to that and training the puppy to not do that. Proactive training, an example of that might be, I'm planning part of the day in my house before I even go outside to take the puppy for a walk, where I'm starting to walk the puppy in the house. And the purpose of the training session intentionally is just to teach the puppy to walk on a leash. So proactive is planned training. It's where you plan a session where you know you're going to be training that puppy on a certain skill. And again, reactive is where you're reacting to the puppy and you're redirecting, you're correcting, you're positively rewarding, but the puppy's behavior is what initiates your behavior. Whereas proactive training is, I'm planning the session out. And there's so many reasons why proactive training is actually oftentimes more effective. Number 1, if you're planning the training, then your mind is going to be more focused. You're going to have a clearer mind, clearer focus. There's not going to be distractions as much. We're going to talk about that in principle 2. So again, I don't want to make this video too long, but there needs to be, for successful training, and we're going to get into this with individual behaviors in other videos, but this is just a broad video again. But again, so successful training must involve not only reactive, but also proactive, where you're planning a session out ahead of time to work with a puppy on a specific behavior. So that was principle 1 of the ABCs of puppy poodle training. Let's move on to principle 2. Set up proactive training for success. So what do I mean by setting up? First of all, we already defined what proactive training. Proactive training is where I'm planning the session. It's a planned session for me to work with a puppy on a specific skill. I'm not reacting in the natural environment, I'm actually playing the session. So how do you set those up for success? Well, I have 3 ways that you can make sure you're setting that up for success. The first thing would be this. Really study your puppy and find out what his or her energy level is and focus is best. So for instance, a time to teach a puppy to sit and have a proactive training on teaching a puppy to sit would not involve right after the puppy came out of its crate and it's full of energy and it's running around, it has the zoomies. That's not going to go well. The puppy's going to be frustrated, you're going to be frustrated, so that wouldn't be setting up for success. That would be an example of probably a training session that's not going to go real well. So one way would be to study your puppy and know its energy. So if I was teaching a puppy to sit and I was doing a proactive training on that, in other words, I was planning a specific time where I'm going to work on that skill, I would try to make sure the puppy had medium to low energy and that I was able to keep the puppy's attention as well. That it's kind of like in school where children sometimes need recess before they learn, so they need to kind of get out their energy a little bit. The same principle applies. So part of setting up proactive training for success is to make sure your puppy's attention and energy level matches what it should before you begin the session. The second thing would be your mood and your energy level. If you're exhausted, if you're not focused, if you're kind of had a bad day and you're kind of frustrated already, that would not be a proper time to train your puppy. Make sure you're in a mind where you're going to be diligent, where you're going to be committed to the session. You're going to be diligent. You're going to follow through. You're committed to that session. You're in the right frame of mind. And the third principle of ensuring proper success and proper training is to eliminate or reduce distractions. If there's other things that are causing the puppy to lose focus from you, like I don't recommend typically you do too much training session outside where there's going to be lots of distractions, but you could do it outside, but you want to make sure you eliminate distractions for the puppy, not necessarily for you, but for the puppy. If the puppy is not able to focus because there's kids running around, there's noises running around, there's fireworks going off or whatever. So you want to, when you have proactive sessions, training sessions, you want to make sure that you reduce or eliminate distractions that could cause the puppy to not be able to focus and the training to be successful. So that's principle 2, ensuring success in proactive training. So let's move on to principle 3 of the ABCs of puppy and poodle training. And Meow Meow, she loves to follow us outside, so she'll probably join us for a few seconds. She's a little frisky right now, but these would not work with a cat. These are not trainings and principles that work with a cat. But number 3 of the ABCs of poodle and puppy training is this: use both positive and negative reinforcements. I'm going to define what those are in just a minute. So principle 3 of successful ABCs of puppy or poodle training is this: use both negative and positive reinforcements. So let's talk about the positives first. Poodles are they're generally pretty much pleasers. They want to please their owner. So a positive reinforcement, and they're very food motivated. So both of those things are going to work to your favor when you're training your puppy. So positive reinforcement involves words. So words that express happiness, upbeat words, excited words like mine right now would let a puppy know that you like what they're doing. Another positive reinforcement could be petting the dog. That is something that shows affirmation, shows approval, and they tend to love that. A third positive reinforcement could involve giving treats. Again, they're very food motivated, and so those are all going to be effective. Let me make sure I got a list. Those are all going to be effective positive reinforcements. Or you could have other rewards as well, maybe a special toy or special something that they like to chew on. So those are all positive reinforcements. Now, most people agree with that. Where you're going to get some disagreements is where some people do not believe in negative reinforcements, and I really think you have to have both. Why? Because the puppy needs to know when it's doing something that's not acceptable. And if all I do is try to distract it, I've heard people say this, we'll just distract it by giving it something more appealing than what it's getting through the negative behavior. No, because the problem with that is the puppy never learned that the initial behavior was unacceptable. So you almost try to bribe the puppy and I never figured out that that first behavior was just not acceptable. So negative reinforcement could be, again, words, no, a firm voice, drawn out a little bit. Make sure you're making eye contact. Another negative reinforcement that I use if I see a puppy not doing something is a clap as I'm saying no. So I reinforce the words with also a noise. That purpose of that noise is that will startle the puppy, and whatever it's doing at that time, it's going to stop to look. But again, I want the puppy to know what behaviors are not acceptable as well. And the third way is sometimes you have to use physical negative reinforcement. Let me give you an example of that. I'm not talking about hitting a dog in anger or smacking a dog. But what I mean by that is one of my tools that I'll use for negative reinforcement with a puppy that is play biting and trying to get to stop play biting my hand per se is, let's say it's play biting my left hand. Then, and it hurts. Puppies have sharp teeth. What I might do is say no, at the same time just gently flick the puppy in the nose. You're not trying to thump it. You're just flicking the nose. Just barely a touch of the nose causes my eyes to water. Just a little thump of the nose is going to cause the puppy to stop doing whatever it's doing. And so that would be one of the rare exceptions that I would say a physical negative reinforcement. So if a puppy keeps wanting to bite on my hand, and what I would do is I'd leave the hand in its mouth, and with the other, so I'm actually correcting it as it's doing the bad behavior, and then I might just lightly thump it on the nose. Avoid positive reinforcing negative or unacceptable behavior. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying here. So if a puppy is biting on my hand and I don't want it to bite on my hand, it's not trying to be aggressive, but it's doing it and it's sharp and it's not appropriate, I never want to wrestle back. I never want to wrestle the puppy back like that, because now it thinks it's a game. It thinks I like it. It thinks it's getting my attention. I'm playing with it. So that would be an example of positively reinforcing negative behavior. And when possible, if you do have a puppy that you have to correct for negative behavior, try to negatively reinforce the behavior, then come with something positive. For instance, again, if a puppy is biting on my hand and I don't want that and it's inappropriate, so I tell it no and I thump a little bit on the nose, then how about you get a toy and then right away and play with the puppy and wrestle, a tug-of-war toy or a squeaky stuffed animal, and wrestle with it and play tug-of-war with it to let the puppy know this is acceptable. What I just corrected is not acceptable, but here is what is acceptable. Never try to live a training session as much as you can on a negative note. You want your puppy to keep bonding with you. You don't want it to be scared of you. You want it to be where it knows that you want to spend attention or time with it and give it attention. So that's principle 3. Use both positive and negative reinforcements when training. Okay, let's move on. Principle number 4, we're almost done. The last two don't take quite as long, and that's this. When using positive and negative reinforcement, it must occur immediately after the behavior. So these would typically be in reactive, that you're reacting to something the puppy's doing, but it could be proactive as well. But again, let me repeat that. So when using positive or negative reinforcement, dealing with puppy's behavior, it must be immediately after the puppy's action. For instance, if a puppy goes to the bathroom in the house and you don't catch the puppy doing it and you find it 30 seconds later or even further, you cannot correct the puppy. You just have to clean up and move on. Puppies don't understand something that happened minutes ago. Smearing the puppy's nose in that will not cause the puppy. It will assume that maybe it got in trouble for even going to the bathroom. Or if you scold it, once you find it, the puppy thinks you're scolding it for what you did, what he just got done doing at that time, not 2 minutes ago when it went potty in the house. So that must occur immediately, both positive and negative, for the puppy to truly understand the behavior that's unacceptable or behavior that is acceptable. Let me give you an example of this. So when I'm taking a puppy outside to go to the bathroom, and it goes to the bathroom outside, which is what I want it to do, as that puppy is going to the bathroom, I'm praising it. That's a good boy. What a good boy. You're going potty outside. Good boy. And then as he is getting done peeing and he's getting ready to stand up, then I go to him and I might give him a treat. And again, as I'm giving him a treat, I'm petting him, another positive reinforcement. I'm giving him the treat. And he just went to the bathroom a second or two. He just finished a second or two. Let me show you what often happens is, as the puppy is going to the bathroom, you praise him, then you have a treat for him, and you say, come here, boy, that was such a good boy. You went potty outside like Daddy wants you to, and you give him the treat. That's fine and that's good, but what the puppy probably thinks it got the treat for was coming to you when you called him, which is called recall. So you called the puppy to you, that's such a good boy, come here, get a treat because you went to the bathroom outside. Really, it's better, what would be better is if you went to the puppy as it was finishing and it began standing up and you gave him the treat. So again, principle 4, positive and negative reinforcements for behavior must be immediate. Okay, we're in the home stretch. The final principle, principle 5 of the ABCs of puppy and poodle training is this. When possible, after negative behavior, demonstrate or model positive behavior with your puppy. So what I mean by that, that's probably not phrased exactly right. So if the puppy, what I'm trying to say is, always try to end a training session, whether it's reactive or proactive, in a positive manner if possible. So for instance, if a puppy is play biting me and I don't want it to bite me, I might tell it no and flip it in the nose. But then how about you get a tug of war rope or a squeaky stuffed animal and then begin to play with it and let the puppy know that what is acceptable. And see, you want the puppy when you have to correct it, you want the session to end on a positive note. You want the puppy to know you're still pleased with it, that you're still on good terms with it, and that it doesn't need to be scared of you. So that's principle 5 of puppy training is, when possible, redirect negative behavior with positive behavior. So as we wrap up this, we've gone through the 5 ABCs of puppy or poodle training. Let me just say this as a summary. If a training session is not going well, you're becoming frustrated, the puppy's becoming frustrated, or it's just not productive, things aren't going well, stop the training session and pick it up at another time. Now we didn't cover specific behaviors for training for this one. These are just basic guidelines, but we will do that in future videos, so stay tuned where we address some specific behaviors and how to train those. Thanks for tuning in, and please subscribe to our channel.